So what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, you missed a gathering of people who are celebrating and grieving, who are struggling, and who are doing just fine. You missed a gathering of just regular people. And some folks who walked to church, and actually a whole bunch of folks who were part of the Scotiabank Waterfront Marathon. We had some marathon runners, we had a half marathon runner, we had a whole bunch of us who walked the 5K, and so we were all there. And I will point out that I did the 5K with a whole bunch of our folks, and I took very seriously the gospel and Jesus' admonition that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And so I strived to be first by being last, and I succeeded. But then we gathered to worship, and we had music and prayer and scripture, and together we wondered if we really get this. See, there was this story in the gospel when James and John, sons of Zebedee, go to Jesus and they say, "Jesus, we want you to do something. Whatever we ask, we want you to do." Kind of thing a kid asks. And Jesus said, "What is it you want?" Well, when you get into your glory, we want to sit there with you. And Jesus said, "Do you think you can do what I do? Do you want to go through? Do you want to go the path that I go?" Because you understand, the world loves to worship its leaders, and the leaders become like tyrants. But that's not the way it works. You don't come here to be served; you come to serve. And then he went on to talk about how the last shall be first. And essentially what he's trying to say to them is that he doesn't think the way the world thinks, that God doesn't work the way the world works. And in that question, "Can we sit with you?" reveals the fact that they're not quite there yet. They don't get it. And so we wondered whether we actually get it 2,000 years later, having had these stories to ponder. Do we get it? I mean, the world says watch your back, and we do, but Jesus says open your arms. The world says win at all costs, and we try really hard to win, to be first, to be the best, and yet Jesus did say the last shall be first. You know, we say don't be a wimp, don't be a weak, don't let people walk all over you, and yet Jesus says turn the other cheek. Do we get that Jesus is revealing to us a God who functions not as the world functions, but invites the world to function God's way? God's way tells us that it's okay to be less than perfect. It's okay to be weak, to be vulnerable, to be hurt. It's okay. I mean, I'm the guy who never asks for directions because then people will think that I'm stupid or there's something I don't know. And yet for something as simple as that, Jesus says, seriously, just ask. And if people think that you're foolish or dumb, or who cares? The last shall be first, the first shall be last. It doesn't matter. And the other part of that is that Jesus tells me that God doesn't label, and neither should I. I like to label, because labeling is convenient. When I see somebody who's an idiot, I just decide they're idiots, and I leave them in my little area there, labeled idiot. And when I see people who have a theology that I don't understand or I don't like, I label them and I put them in that position to the right or to the left or to wherever they're going to be. I put them there, and then I never really have to think about them anymore because I'm busy. I don't actually have to listen to them because I already know what they're going to say. It's the way the world works. We know that. But it's not the way that God works. God believes in change. God believes in redemption. God believes that we can actually change our opinions, change our way of being. We can have a new perspective, a new viewpoint. We are not always the same. Jesus didn't listen to these childish disciples and then dismiss them as childish and idiotic and then ignore them. No, Jesus kept engaging with them. believing in their potential, believing that they could change and grow and learn. And that's not the way the world always works. The world's not big on questions, smart questions or foolish questions. Politicians would rather tell us things than have people applaud instead of actually asking or answering questions being asked by people. It's the way of the world, and yet God says, let's have questions. Let's listen to questions. Let's create a place where questions are welcome. And then let's imagine that we're not weak because we don't know the answers. Let's in fact learn together that we're community. Imagine. It's funny that in the midst of that too, I think God reminds us that it's not all about us. The world doesn't revolve around us. All the good things that happen, that's not us. All the bad things that happen, that's not us. It's no wonder we get so weighed down. If the world's all about us and, well, look at the shape the world's in, we must be pretty crappy. We talked about that today. We talked about the fact the world does not revolve around us. It's not all about us, that we are part of creation. We are siblings with everybody. All of us, God's children. We talked about labels and how useless they are when in fact people do change if we let them, if we only open our eyes and hearts to them. We recognize that first or last, whatever we might be in the race doesn't matter because it's not a race. It's community. It's love. It's who we're trying to be at Jubilee. And I wish you could be here with us to try. But you can work on that this week yourself. Imagine for a moment that the world's not actually all about you, but that you are wonderfully part of it. Not because you're first or last, but because you are simply wonderfully part of it. And hopefully you'll get to be back here soon and be part of us, because we miss you. So until we see you again, God bless.